you can't seem to avoid, if you're in the military, people asking you over and over again from coast to coast, every command. People are always going to ask you if you're a lifer. Are you going to stay in for 20? Are you going to do the long haul, make it a career? And it tends to be the younger crowd that tend to say, no, I'm going to do this first tour and kind of move on, which is fine. 20 years in the military, especially if you're young, it's really hard to see 20 years down the road. I mean, I'm 39 right now. If you asked me when I was 18 what I'd be doing when I was 40, I would have said something like, pro wrestler or something, So it's definitely difficult for people to see, 50 feet in front of them in the military, especially in that environment. Things are changing all the time. So I have got to do something about this unibrow. It's starting to come together. It's looking like Frida Kahlo. But it's it's tough to see that far out, especially when you're young. And even now, I seem to be one of the only people that boisterously say, yes, I want to be in for 20, do my tour, get a pension, get out, do whatever I want to do. That was my plan from the very beginning. But it seems more and more like people are gravitating towards, at least on the corpsman side, are gravitating towards, I'm going to get out, be a civilian, do what I do, and make much more money. And it does, it never bothered me. I said, hey, that's your journey. You got to do what you got to do. And, for whatever time that we're working together, I appreciate. So that's all you can really say. I mean, if people were to ask me my opinion, I'd say, hey, why not stay in for as long as you can? I mean, we all got to get out sometime, so it's not like it's going to be a surprise. But the reason I bring this up is because I want to talk about these fucking civilians. I mean, I tell you, becoming a civilian does seem to be a lot more appealing, the closer I get to becoming one. I don't know what the deal is. It seems like these civilians, I mean, what do you have to do to get fired as a civilian working in a military base? Seriously. I mean, these civilians, they show up when they want, they leave when they want, they take these Hollywood lunch breaks, and it's always the active duty enlisted that seem to have to cover for them. And it's funny because when you're enlisted, there's a very clear line in the sand between military and civilian. Civilians, I don't know what it's like being a GS working in a military base. I know there's some things you can do, some things you can't do, but regardless, it seems like the military are constantly picking up the slack for the civilians. But it never seems to work the other way around. Like you wouldn't, I would never, ever think to ask a civilian to cover me while I go to lunch. That would never happen. Now, an active duty person covering military for lunch, the other way around, all the time, daily even. So it really, really is interesting because, no civilian wants to go back to being, at least, again, on the corpsman side, no civilian wants to go back to being a corpsman on the active duty side. You can barely get them to do reserves. But active duty going civilian and doing the same job, seems like they all want to do that. I mean, mostly. So, and it just got me to thinking, so when I joined the military, I was working in call centers. I was in Arizona. I had a relationship that didn't work out, and we were living together. So we were about halfway through this lease. We had an apartment together. We kind of made it work through the lease. I paid half the rent, and we just kind of kept it professional. And eventually I got out of there, but I needed a job. So I got this job working at a call center, which is ironically where I met my current wife. And it was just, I knew going in that it was going to be a bad fit. I mean, when you see a job, that says travel agent, oh, well, hey, I love to travel. I know my geography. I've been watching Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego since I was 10 years old. Sure, I could do that. But, man, it seems like you can get fired for anything as a civilian. anything. I mean, I got fired from that job, and not unjustly. I got fired from that job. I mean, I checked out mentally. I was basically daring them to fire me, so it wasn't a surprise that I got fired from that job. But the next job I had, very similar. I was working for American Express Travel, and then this one was a little less stressful in that I didn't have to actually convince someone to buy anything. They were actually calling me and knowing what they wanted to buy. This was like for flights and hotels arrangements and that kind of stuff for business travelers, so a little less pressure to, be that super smiley, friendly, hi, what can I do for you today, but, I could just be myself, and then, everything would kind of take care of itself. But this is a true story. So, I'd gotten myself on kind of a short leash with the establishment because, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, she had a car that was kind of on the fritz here and there. It wasn't a great car. And she texts me at work and says, hey, my car just died. I'm like, oh, shit. So, I figure like, okay, well, I can take my lunch break and just let the brass know that I'm going to be a little late and, that I have to go do this thing. So I take my lunch, which was only 30 minutes, by the way. Fucking prisoners in jail get to have an hour lunch, but not those at American Express, apparently. But anyway, so I take my lunch, go. Turns out she had a dead battery, so I changed the battery, get back. I think I was gone for maybe 45, 50 minutes, just shy of an hour. And they came and talked to me and said, hey, you've got this undocumented time. I'm like, yeah, I understand, but I didn't have, it's my girl. I'm not going to let my girl just sit out there on the side of the road. I mean, what was I supposed to do? So, so that was kind of strike one. And the thing that finally put the nail in the coffin was I was on a call, and I forget why. I think I was just stressed out, and I just had a bad call, or I was frustrated with something. Well, you know what it was? I think what it was is because that job, they actually brought you into the office and scored your calls. You're supposed to go down this script, and they actually gave you a grade. And they said, oh, well, if you'd have just done this, then you would have gotten a better score, so we have to put you in some remedial training. I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on, man. So I was angry, and I took off my headset, and I just kind of flung it down on my computer, and they actually fired me for that. For taking my headset and flinging it down at the computer. Didn't break anything, didn't hurt anybody, just flinging my headset, and they fired me for that. Now, take that bit of information from the real world, those of you who are still in the military, take that bit of information from the real world and think about what civilians do around you every single day that is 20 times worse than that. I've been in commands where civilians, my x-ray techs will know what I'm talking about. I've been at commands where civilians are actually palpating the symphysis pubis. Now, if you don't know what that is, now palpate just means to feel with your hands or to, inspect with your hands. And the symphysis pubis is the portion of your pelvis at the very bottom where the bones come together, kind of like that. So basically, your taint. Is that going to be appropriate in any capacity? I mean, man, it is. I would love to know what these civilians have to do to get fired. When I was in phase 2 of X-ray school, first of all, if any of the guys from San Antonio are watching right now, I love you guys. 99.9% of the people I work with there are awesome. Definitely a cast of characters. We'll get to that in another video, but great people that I'm still close with, still friends with, communicate with all the time. But there's just one person, and again, I'm not going to name any names, but if you guys from San Antonio are watching this right now, you know exactly who I'm talking about. This woman actually picked a fight with me. A fight, like a Donnybrook, a blood sport. This lady was probably 68 years old, and her body looked like it had been through 2 world wars. I mean, this lady she couldn't walk straight, and she kind of walked with this kind of crazy motion, and she just looked like she'd been rode hard and put away wet. And we're in this situation where I'm doing x-ray, I'm doing fluoroscopy, and I'm in this room, and the doctor, who was cool as shit, by the way, the doctor comes in. On this channel, if you watch it, consistently, you'll know I probably won't say cool doctor very often, but this doctor was really awesome. And I'm in there with this civilian x-ray tech and me as a trainee at the time. And I had set up this fluoro exam. You're supposed to set it up with, a sterile field and make sure everything stays clean and separated from the patient so it doesn't get dirty or contaminated. And I had forgotten a piece of equipment. I think it was like a syringe or a needle or something like that, but I had forgotten it. Now we're talking about something that is a quick fix. I'm talking like 10 seconds. Grab it out of a drawer, put it on the thing, and no harm, no foul. And this woman just starts screaming at me. How could you forget? What did I tell you? How many times did I tell you? Did you look at the list? If you'd have looked at the list, you would have gotten it right. And I'm like, what the hell is this lady's problem? And I'm like, okay. And I'm just trying to like calm her down. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. You're right. I should have paid more attention. I'm sorry about that. Well, if you would have paid attention in the first place, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. And I'm looking around like, what situation? And there's a patient right there. And this lady is screaming at me in front of him, in front of the patient, in front of the doctor. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'm just trying to diffuse it. So I just walked out. She's sitting there screaming. And okay, well, you know what? I can't deal with this right now. So I'm just going to go. Bye-bye. So, and this lady has a reputation for being a snitch. So I went to the civilian supervisor because I'm military. I don't deal with civilians, okay? I don't deal with civilian employees. If you're a civilian and you come in for care, that's one thing. But if you're a civilian employee, I don't deal with you, okay? We could be friends. We could talk. We could chit-chat. But you, on a personal level, you and your bullshit, I don't deal with you. So I went to the civilian supervisor. I let her know, hey, listen, I'm not here to rat anybody out, but this is what happened. And she told me, well, she first of all, she wasn't surprised that this situation happened with this person because they're a problem child. So apparently I had ratted her out before she had a chance to rat me out. So when she goes to rat me out, she said, oh, well, I already heard about what happened. And, I think you guys just need to squash it. She was being an adult about it. The supervisor was. So the civilian tech comes and finds me in the main radiology space after that, and she's like, hey, what was up with that? I'm like, look, I'm not dealing with you. No, I mean, what kind of person are you? Now I see what kind of person you are. I see your character. You're going to go behind my back and say XYZ. Look, I just told her what happened. Because you're the kind of person that's going to go and blow it out of proportion like I did something to harm the patient or put the patient in some sort of unsafe position. And I'm military. I could actually get in trouble, and I'm not getting in trouble for your punk ass. I didn't say punk ass, but I should have. But, and as she's saying this, she's getting closer and closer to me in my face. First of all, this lady is like 5'0", and she's getting, up close to me in my face, and she's like pushing her chest out like she wants to do something. And I'm like, what? And this is happening in front of everybody. There was like 8 techs back there. And we're looking at this little lady like, what the hell is she trying to do? I think I actually said that. I'm looking at some of the other techs and I'm like, what the hell is she trying to do? What is this? Is this your mating dance? Are you in heat? What the hell is the matter with you? So, I said, look, lady, I don't know what your problem is, but you need to chill. And she was like, hey, you know what? I'm not scared of you. I'm not afraid of you. I don't care how big you are and blah, blah, blah. Whenever somebody says that they're not afraid of how big you are, it probably means that they are. Otherwise, why would they mention it? But I fully expected her to have I don't know if she got a write-up or got something, but what I do know is she just recently retired. So clearly she didn't get fired. And this is like 5 years ago. Maybe not 5, maybe 4. But anyway, it was several years ago. And she didn't get fired. I don't understand how that works. I mean, they show up when they want. They leave when they want. They do what they want. And as long as there's a military person there to pick up the slack, nobody cares. I think someone told me that the only way to really get a civilian fired is if a patient complains on them. But clearly that's not the case, because I work with a couple of civilians right now who I can't see how a patient hasn't complained. Because, I don't know. They're just a live wire. There's a civilian I work with right now. This guy is out of control, and my bros at Balboa right now know exactly who I'm talking about. This motherfucker is out of control. I mean, if this guy was military, I would have reported him a long time ago, and like, seriously, I would have gone to my chief and been like, yo, this guy's going to show up here with an AK-47 and waste everybody. That's how crazy this guy is. This guy is, I mean, if he doesn't get relieved for lunch, he just pitches a hissy fit. If he has to stay too long, he pitches a hissy fit. He cries and just like, you know, and just his mannerisms and the way he talks to people and the way he does things, it's just like, you know, and he does it with that big manic smile on his face. Well, I guess, you know, I'm just not going to get lunch today, so I don't know what to do, so I guess I'm just going to go ahead and go and, you know, just go about my day without eating anything, because, you know, that's what people do. I mean, if you saw this guy, you would stop. I mean, I see homeless people all the time in downtown San Diego. If I saw a person acting the way he did that looked like he was homeless, I would actually stop and say, hey, bro, do you need something? Can I get you something? You want a burger or a ride someplace? I mean, what do civilians have to do to get fired? There's a joke running around through just the military in general, well, mostly amongst corpsmen, is that which is least likely to happen? Every civilian showing up for their shift when they're supposed to, or every elevator working on the same day? Both. If you if you've been on a military base, you know that both of those things aren't likely to happen. So I don't know. Look, if you're in a position to go out there and be a civilian working on a military base, go for it, especially if it's something, you know, for my corpsmen out there, if it's something hospital related, even if it's something as simple as being an LVN. You know, an LVN, you know, you can pretty much not do anything. My first tour at Naval Medical Center, there was this LVN. I mean, she was an LVN, apparently. Everyone called her LVN so-and-so, but she didn't do anything. I mean, this broad couldn't put on a Band-Aid. I mean, the only thing she could put on, apparently, was a wide assortment of wigs, because that's the only thing I ever saw her put on or take off. Well, not take off, thankfully. But in any event, when I was working at Naval Medical Center San Diego, my first tour back in 2011 and 2013, there was a civilian RN who straight up lied to get me in trouble. I'm on the ward, and I forget exactly what the situation was. It was something to do with some medication, because if you're on the ward long enough, you get access to the machine that dispenses medication. You can go through and you can give the medication, chart it, make sure your nurse knows, and you end up going pretty independent if if you pay attention and you're interested in doing that. But anyway, this lady came in, and there was something about it was something really simple like aspirin or Tylenol or something, but this civilian RN comes in, and she says, "Oh, this patient's supposed to get their Tylenol." I said, "Oh, well, I already gave it to him." And she says, "Oh, well, it's not in their chart." Well, I'm charting it right now. And she says, "Oh, you're supposed to chart it before you give it." And I go, "Huh? No, you're not. Does that even sound right? Does it sound right to chart in the patient's record that they received a medication before they take it? What if the patient refuses it? What if they can't take it? What if they're not in the room? I mean, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense." So I told her, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give the patient their medication and then chart it. I'm not going to do it backwards. I said, "Oh, well, that's how it's always been done." I'm like, "No, it's not." And I straight out told her, you got to remember, I'm like 30, She's used to talking to these lower enlisted people who are in their teens or their early 20s. I'm 30 years old. I'm not going to get scared of some little old lady in a lab coat, okay? I'm just not. So this lady, we go back and forth for a minute, and again, I just kind of did disconnect. I'm like, whatever, do what you want. You're the boss, aren't you? And the next morning, the brass comes in, the chiefs and the first classes all come in, and she tells them that I refuse to give a patient medication. And I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" She says, and the my supervisor, my LPO, who comes over and says, Jones, did you refuse to give a patient his meds? I'm like, no. What are you talking about? You can check the chart. I gave them their meds. Oh, well, the nurse says you were refusing. I said, no. Here's what she said. And like, oh, well, that's not what she said at all. She said that she told you to give her the meds and you refused to. Like, that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. You know, and there were people standing around that heard this whole altercation go down. So it's not like it's my word against hers. But again, if you're a civilian on a military base, you damn near have to come in there with a suicide vest to get fired. And then it might, you know, that might defy the purpose in the first place. So I don't know, man. Do your civilians out there act like this, or is it just where I work? You know, let me know down in the comments. If you're enjoying Big Jones, Big Life Unleashed, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe. Leave me a comment if you want to, and I'll see you guys real soon. I'll see you around.